So I wanted to discuss the difficulty in my predictions for the AIME floor cutoffs for the 10B and the 12B. I think both contests were, this is kind of a, how do we decide if we say easier or harder? To be honest, it's relative. And how do they decide what questions go on which test? So they flip a coin. There's two questions of approximately equal difficulty in their mind, according to what they think. And I heard, this is what I've heard, that they flip a coin to decide what test it goes on. I think it was somebody of prominent importance that had said it. Well, that's how they do it. The questions are made 2 to 3 years in advance, but this is the first year as a reminder that the international community will not affect the cutoffs for the AIME floor. I don't know about predictions for DHR or distinction or honor roll or whatever. I don't usually make those predictions. I'm much less accurate or trying to guess those. I don't really try to analyze it as much. Instead, I try to focus on the AIME floor since the majority of my viewers are trying to accomplish that. And I'm much more competent, I feel like, or at getting close to that right mark. So, having said that, looking through the 10B, I really didn't feel two is very standard for number theory. One, I mean, you just divide 350 over 20. It's almost instant, kind of breezy. Number three, Pascal-like triangle has 10 at the top row. If you did the sums, the sum of the digits of the sum of the numbers, since you're looking for the sum of the numbers, you probably want to analyze a sum like that. You also had a little bit of this kind of action happening. I believe it was on question 19 on the A test. So if you had done the A test, you got a little bit of Pascal-like action there to kind of think about Pascal's triangle type setups in different ways. So you got a little bit of a lead in or a pattern-based question, as I call that, where one question's concept will appear in both tests. Obviously, it's much easier on the number three here. The next one, question four, it really standard base problem for anybody who's done. Now, if you haven't done number theory, then it's not standard for you. But for the vast majority of your experienced test takers, which is what the majority of the B participants are, four isn't really a challenge unless you make an error, I suppose. But it's if you've done intro to number theory, new class coming out soon, first week of December, if you're interested. If you've done that, this is a standard problem, not even a challenge problem or anything like that. Pretty quick to do. Five might have taken a little bit of time. I think it's a standard problem about in the five range. You might have spent 3 minutes on it, maybe four. Maybe you even ultimately could have skipped it theoretically if you didn't think of the right mechanism. Geo problems sometimes have that aspect where some people get it really quick and they have right intuition to try something. Others try two or three or four things that have all been part of previous problems and it doesn't generate a solution path right away and they lose time on those kind of questions. So there's a little bit of a lucky kind of aspect, in my opinion, to a lot of geo questions. Number six, this isn't really too challenging. It seems like I don't know, just what is it? Uh, Chord bashing. It's just coordinate plane stuff, and you just do the equation, see where lines cross. You have to find the area. You have to know the area of a trapezoid. And then you have to be careful with your x equals a that you don't think it's a different value like y or something like that. But as long as you're careful, this could have been in any honors algebra 2 or pre-calc class on a test or something. Not too bad. I did, by the way, use my strategy and I skipped 6 through 10 and went straight to 11. And I didn't find 11 that challenging. Kind of like the previous on the A, the 11 was pretty easy as well. 12 didn't really take too long either. You just kind of went through the steps. For number 12, I wasn't pressed on it. 13 did have a little bit of a challenge to it, especially if you made calculation errors in your process, which in fact, I did make one. At one point, I multiplied 2 root 3 by root 3, and I got 12, thinking of 2 root 3 squared when you're, trying to go quick. And it's actually 6, obviously, and that impacted because it made your answer not appear in the answer space. And so I could see how you might have also tried various other paths. you're asking yourself, is there a connection between altitudes and medians? Maybe I use Stewart's theorem. I tried Stewart's theorem. It does get 0 = 0 if you execute it correctly, which doesn't really help. And so I can see a little bit of time being wasted here. Maybe you spent 5, 6 minutes on it, 7 minutes, something like that. This was a good challenging question to do. Number 14, if you've done intro to number theory and you've really mastered the content for an experienced solver, this is again, it can be trivialized with the right approach. Number 15, I ended up skipping it during the test. I couldn't think of the right way to go about it or how to create the telescoping aspect to it correctly. I did get halfway through and got to the partial fraction decomposition and kind of couldn't see how to advance from there in the moment, and I skipped it at that point and went on. Number 16, honestly, really not that challenging. Again, if you've done intro to counting and probability and mastered that material, and I do have a class coming out for that as well, first week of December, 8 students max. It now has 4 students signed up, so there's 4 spots remaining. There were six, I believe, 6 counting and probability questions on this test, if I counted correctly. That's a lot. So huge impact if you had a good skill in that conceptual arena. 17, um, I think you just explore the problem and it kind of unravels. I don't think that it was particularly for somebody of experience level. I don't think it's going to be a total detriment to them. 18 was really interesting. I think that there was a lot of things that I forget how exactly I solved it. I'll have to look at my work later. But I didn't think it took forever. It was just kind of fun. I liked the question a lot. 19 too can be trivialized with the right approach, meaning you can get 19 in about 2 minutes or less. And it wasn't particularly challenging, again, if you just think about similarity. I'll have a video solution for this later, and I'll go through that question as well. 20, if you don't calculate correctly or you don't observe things properly, but there is a small notebook concept on it for sure, namely, connecting their centers, and you got 2R there. And since you have R going here, this is 1 minus R, and this is big R. And you use that to find the value of R. And once you have that, then you have ways to connect to the center here and things like that. But anybody who's done multiple circle problems had a little bit of an edge here. And it's the basic rule is when you have multiple circles, connect their centers. So 20 as well wasn't that bad. So when you compare it to 10A, then by the way, when I got there, I went back to 6 through 10 and they weren't really bad. The 7 Francis, it's basically a map. You just draw it correctly and then you set the two things equal. You got a little bit of algebra to do, but nothing that's like, uber elite type of difficulty. 8 is a standard number theory problem. I could see you lose time if you had converted if you had made this something like 10,001A and you try to set up like that, I could see how you might lose some time there as you looked at that and tried to figure it out. But most people can look at the 36 and going 9 and 4 and attack it that way. 9 was a very fun, interesting problem. It's got the symmetry in it, but overall, again, not terrible. 10 as well. You had to be careful. There is a trap answer in 10. I do feel a lot of people probably did have a chance to fall for that. Even people who qualified fell for that trap. It's not this because one of the values you get is 4 and it doesn't work. But basically, you're just trying to factor this. And as long as you've learned a second semester of Algebra 2, factor theorem, remainder theorem, synthetic division, that kind of thing, the rational roots theorem, and you throw that at it, it falls apart pretty quick to get the setup in. I think you could probably, if you didn't skip the 6 through 10, you probably could have done the first 10 in less than 20 minutes. That'd be my guess. I didn't take that chance and I wanted to skip the 6 through 10 like I had said in my B prep video, and it worked pretty good. I'm not disappointed with the strategy at all. I'll probably recommend it next year. Had several students who said it helped them a lot. So now that we talked about that, when you compare that to the 10A, where there were so many questions in the first 10 that felt super difficult, and this number 15 was quite challenging as well. The 13, it seemed to be a lot more difficult than it actually was, but in the time of the test, it seemed very difficult at that time. Same for 10, it seemed a little bit tricky, but not once you realized you had all the information that you need. 11 was really easy. 9 was quite challenging because it had IVT and you weren't expecting it to have that. Once you stumbled across, what if I'll plug in some numbers, it falls apart. 7 was easy, but 6 was quite challenging for a 6. 5 was quite challenging for a 5. 4 took more time. 3 took a little bit longer. I think 2 also took a little bit more time. I don't think 1 was necessarily hard, but when you think about the difference in the time structure, I'm expecting the B cutoff. I'm going to make my guess as 100.5. I wouldn't be surprised at all if it gets to a 103. Let's see, would it be 103.5? Yeah, 103.5. I think I could see it getting up to as high as here. I don't think it's going to be like last year on the B. If you know that last year the 10A cutoff was a 94.5 and the 10B was a 105, a huge, biggest difference in the two scores I've ever seen, 10.5 differential there. And so will that happen this year? I don't think you're going to get this high. I wouldn't be super surprised, but what I'm going down to here for, maybe we could even say 102 could be the cutoff, something like that. I don't even know if 102 is possible. I'd have to check. But my guess is going to be 100.5. And I would not be as surprised if it got here. I would put this at the upper end of possible. Upper end of possible, but be like 5% chance in my opinion. Whereas 103.5, I'd probably give it a 25% chance, and you probably have 50% chance here. Could it get down as low as 97? Sure, I'll give that a 25% chance, or 96, whatnot. Let's say 96. Maybe a 20% chance of a 96. I just don't really see it getting down this low, honestly. If anything, if I'm going to make an error, it's probably going to be higher, possibly even. There's two things to consider. International doesn't have an impact anymore, and don't forget that on the B test, more experienced students tend to take it. Your general population of test takers that are just part of high schools that offer the test, they're not in this test. So it'll come down to how many people they want to accept from each test and what they decide to do with that. So my B prediction, 10B, is a 100.5. Again, I will not be surprised to be wrong. It's just a prediction. It's just a guess. Again, as I said at the beginning too, easier and harder, it's really relative to the person. So I might have found it way easier. And when I'm answering that question, by the way, I'm not trying to answer it easier for me. I'm trying to answer it based on what the students I have taught and have seen, the general population students, general population of comp math students, would not have as much difficulty with this. And I believe talking to most people that I've spoken with, that bore out in what people said. They all seemed to feel it was easier. One student got like a 90 on the, or 80 something on the 10A and jumped up to 118 on the 10B. So a lot of students that have been doing a lot of comp math did find this a lot more palatable for speed. A lot of the things that you do are really instant instinct. Like, you 10B, it's like this one right here. The first thing you do is go, does one work? No. Does -1 work? Yes. -1, -2, -8, and you're just immediately off to the races. But there's no hesitation for a trained solver on what to do here. It's not like they've never seen a cubic before and never tried to factor it. It's not like they've never seen a rational function and had to make cancellations and they didn't learn about holes and asymptotes and graphs. So if you've done that, it's pretty straightforward. 9 was not as straightforward, but there's still a lot of good things that you can capitalize on it, like symmetry. 8, I feel like very straightforward. To me, it's 9 and 4. I need multiple of 4, multiple of 9, and you're doing kind of Diophantine type of thinking from that point. Same thing for 7. Just follow the words, trace it out, calculate okay. I don't, it's not like it says 15 meters directly south of a locked gate and you've got the locked gate here and is that like something we chat? I don't know where 15 is or where south is. I don't think anybody had that. You have to read carefully, but once you've got the picture drawn, it pretty much falls apart. I'm going to go with 100.5, maybe even 103.5. I wouldn't be surprised by that. Probably even give 103.5 more of a chance than I would a 97 or 96. So, yeah, with that being said, let's go look at the 12. Again, the 12 was pretty hard. 10, not easy to calculate. Ortho Center wasn't hard, but 10, there's a lot of potential error. It was weird. 9, not that bad for a lot of students. 8, though, 8 could really take a while. 7 had weird logs in it. 5, we already talked about. A lot of people had trouble with that. Um, Even 4, if you're not good at logic, it was much more challenging. When we go to the B, this number 3 is super easy for a complex number problem. Again, if you're doing the AMC 12, you've probably done intro to number theory by this point. This is an automatic instant action. You just look at it, AB base 7, 7A plus B, two-digit number BA, it's 9B plus A. There's no thinking if you've learned this concept. It's instantaneous and you know to move things over. So you get 6A equals 8B, and then you just kind of reason from there, um, knowing that you have to have values that are less than 7. You obviously try things out until something works. Same thing on number 5. You can sell right away. This is even. This has to be even to add to an even. And since if I put 8, it's too big. You're over 400, so x can only be 6, 4, or 2. That's it. Can't be 0 because it's not positive. Go do trial and error. It's not like we're hesitating here if you're trained. And so, trained mean you've been doing this a couple of years. You've done a lot of the books, you've done a lot of the contests and the mocks and things like that. 6, we already talked about. 7, if you've learned the log rules and you know them all, it's also pretty standard problem. I didn't have any hesitation. Maybe within 5 seconds, I'm adding these two things. And then from there, everything worked out okay. This is a pretty good trap answer, by the way, if you didn't get the proper ordering when you separated it into two terms. Um, Number 8, again, this is standard pre-calc concept. If you've done pre-calculus or even algebra 2, rational roots, or if you have um, integer or rational real roots here, whatever, real coefficients, I'm trying to say, and you have this as a root, automatically 4 minus rad 5, and then you're just doing Vietas, and school kids know Vietas, meaning non-comp math students. This is a problem you do in, gosh, 30 seconds, 45 seconds, especially if you've been doing it for a while, not like the number 8 on the A test that took a long time. Number 9, pretty standard as well if you've done number theory. If you've done volume 1, this concept appears in it. And then after that, you use a little bit of number theory. Now, I will say 10 was a very respectable problem, and it might have taken you a little while to get it. We've talked about that. 11, 11 wasn't easy. I know some people who spent more time on it than others. But again, it's not overly burdensome. I haven't even gotten past this point yet, but I didn't really do the rest of these for film, the video for it yet. But 13, again, pretty standard combinatorics. We already talked about 14, talked about how 15 isn't that bad. So of your first 15, if you answered all of those, you're looking at a 90 plus 15, 105. So I think you could get that 105 pretty easily. 16 looks like you're being careful with analog clock things. Looks kind of interesting. Um, I don't think that 17 was that bad. Yeah. So I'm going to go with a little bit higher cutoff for the 12B as well. A lot of people said that it was significantly easier. What is my prediction going to be? I think on the 12A, I think I was around 84.5, something like that. Was it 84? I don't remember what I had anymore. Maybe it was something like that. I want to go up a little bit higher. Let's go with 91.5 on the 12B. Now, your saving grace on this is that 12B, they do seem to take more AMC 12. And again, without the international participation, I wouldn't be surprised if it got a little bit lower, like 87. I would not, there's no way it's going to get lower than 87. I just don't see it happening with how many questions on here were standard boilerplate. Boilerplate means it's normal process. And so many questions were normal processes for people who have been around comp math for a while. And I'm not saying that makes them easy. It might have still been hard, especially under pressure and stress. But yeah, those are my predictions. 12B 91.5, 10B 103.5 or 100.5, 100.5. Sorry, that's what I said before. Yeah. Trying to recall what I was putting. But again, I think this is probably a close second pick. Something like that would also be pretty good. So these are probably right around in there, is my guess for the 10B. That's all I've got for that. I will have a video coming out hopefully tomorrow that will announce some advice for the next coming year for everybody who plans to prepare for this test in 2026 and what a good strategy might look like over that time. So for now, hope you enjoyed it. I'll try to get some more solutions filmed soon too, along with my winter class schedule getting released here really shortly. Thank you. Have a good night.